Hello everyone, Speed here with another Battlefield Heroes video. So today I wanted to quickly talk about something kind of similar to my last video, just like a follow-up to that basically. Because last time obviously I asked the question, do people still play Battlefield Heroes? And now I kind of want to talk about why don't people play Battlefield Heroes? You know, what are the sort of negatives associated with it? Why don't people want to play anymore? Or, you know, what are the reasons for it? So yeah, I kind of want to go over the most common reasons, basically, and maybe also like go over how to fix or counter them. But yeah, basically, what I'm going to talk about more or less has been pulled from the comments on my last video, so thank you for those. But I think generally most of what I brought up, because I did sort of talk about this a little bit, most of what I talked about, I think most of you guys sort of agreed on, and it made sense to everyone. But yeah, these are kind of like the main ones. I just want to highlight them really, and you know, not all of these have like an easy or even a necessary fix, but I still think it's kind of interesting to mention them, just to get a bit of perspective, really. But yeah, obviously, thanks for those comments because it's given me some more content here, which is always nice. So, first problem that I was reading about, a few of you mentioned this actually, and I didn't really think about this to be honest, but yeah, again, like it's nice to see new things being brought up that I didn't think about at the time. But yeah, so one reason that people are saying why they don't play, or why they think people don't play, is basically because of the download process. So basically, the whole linking with Discord thing, basically the whole process, to download then to play, being kind of too long or confusing, complicated, basically all of those things, more complicated than it needs to be for some people. And I'm not saying it's too difficult, but it's still, more steps than how to play the original game. It was basically as simple as download and press the play now button. That was it, more or less. But yeah, I think generally these things need to be made as simple as possible. Otherwise, people can sort of give up or lose interest. And I can relate to that. If something is a bit too complicated for me, unless I'm really in the right mindset, sometimes you need to sort of like step away from it, and you might not even go back to it. There might be some people that thought, okay, I don't want to mess with Discord, I don't want to link anything, or whatever step it is. It's probably to do with that, but you know, someone might think that it's just too complicated for them, and they might just step away from that, and they may never come back. They may not try again. So yeah, so to counteract this, maybe to try and fix this, maybe they could simplify the process further if possible, make it easier to follow via a guide on the website maybe. I mean, I always try and link my own tutorial when I can, and I will put that in the comments and the description, by the way, as well. I started to do that in the last video. um, yeah, so because I did do a tutorial on how to play the game, and I went through like all those steps. But yeah, also maybe just remove the Discord linking part if it's not essential nowadays. But I don't really follow that part enough to know like how likely that change could be. It could be that that's a pretty important part, and it's kind of necessary for everything to work the way it does. So yeah, maybe it's just a case of just sit through it, and if necessary, maybe I can try and do a more condensed guide at some point. But I think what I did was kind of easy enough. But again, I can see where people are coming from when they say, okay, for me this is too much work, too much effort. Especially when you compare to the old game, that process. But again, different times, and again, we're talking about something unofficial versus something official. So yeah, something else that I kind of mentioned in the last video, but again, this got highlighted by a few people. Basically, the fact that people that played during the original game and like the peak years, so like 2009, 2010, for example, you know, that they wouldn't be playing. That they probably don't play anymore because they're older now. Not as they're not as interested in games, and they've moved on with their lives, and they've got different hobbies, stuff like that. If you're thinking like, I don't know, let's say when BFH was new, someone was in their, I don't know, late 20s. Obviously now, it's a point where their life might be completely different, and they probably aren't interested. But I mean, luckily for me, that wasn't the case when I started the game. I was a bit younger than that, so yeah, still interested. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, like this is just one of those where it's a part of life. I mean, you can't really sort of
fix this. It's just like a personal thing. You know, it happens to most people eventually, right? You know, you can't really do much about that apart from, I guess, maybe trying to appeal to a younger player base nowadays. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult to bring back, you know, certain people from the start of the game to some extent, depending on like the age ranges and all that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the case for everyone. You know, some people still, you know, play games here and there if they're a bit older, or they just stick to one specific thing, and maybe that could be BFH for some people. Who knows? Um, this is one that I can't actually remember if I brought this up, but this is something that I remember reading quite a while ago actually. I think I might have said something about it, but basically like the whole level grinding thing. I did kind of talk about it a bit with like things being unbalanced, but yeah. So people have said over the years, you know, I've read it quite a few times that you know the barrier of entry isn't great. There's obviously a level grind. It's harder to compete when starting out again. You know, and there were a few solutions that some of you guys gave as well in those comments, so that's cool. But yeah, basically like to fix that, maybe give a bigger XP boost to new players or in general. You know, have like specific events on servers where you're getting more benefits, you know, more XP, everything else. Maybe give more starting VP so you can sort of experiment with different weapons and try out different things. I think at the moment it's like 1,000 VP, which is kind of true to the original game, but maybe that's not enough for some people. But again, like the ability points are kind of a big deal as well. You know, that can basically, you know, make a big difference in a fight, and you know, with balance and everything. Um, or maybe just start everyone at a higher level. But that is kind of a mixed. That's going to have a mixed response, I feel. You know, so this is a very divided topic. I think like some people like the leveling and the progression side of things, and other people think it's too much of a grind, especially when they already had like many level 30 heroes back in the day. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. You know, you've definitely got positives and negatives for both sides there. Some people might think, why should I have to go through this all over again? I just want to play and you know have everything unlocked. Other people think, well, it just extends the sort of lifespan and you know it gives the game more replay value to some extent maybe. But yeah, like I said, I've given a few examples there of what they could do to counter those complaints. But for me personally, I never really struggled with it too much. But again, like I've been playing BFH since like 2010, and I did never really took a massive break from it. So, you know, it's different for me because obviously when I you know when the game came back in 2017, I was following it like all the way through that more or less. So, yeah, I've never been in a position where I've come back and I've had like heroes at a low level. So, yeah, it's definitely something that affects certain people, and again, I can see why that's something that people aren't happy about. So another thing here is the player divide between commando players and people that don't play that class. To the extreme of like some servers having no commandos and others having a game that's like dominated by them on both sides. So, you know, maybe not this extreme, but close enough to like a full server of commandos. So yeah, again, this is kind of an awkward one because it's ultimately like up to the server owner to make their rules on, you know, limits and stuff like that. But I think a minimum of like one or two commandos is more fair instead of like banning them completely. But again, it's difficult, you know, and the original game faced these problems too, although there were more servers available and players, of course, so it wasn't really as noticeable, but yeah, it was definitely a thing in the old game as well. You could join servers and get kicked immediately as a commando. And again, I do understand where people are coming from. I think too many commandos in a game just becomes like a game of hide and seek, basically. And depending on the setup and the and the like weapons and stuff, yeah, it can be pretty overpowered. I've always thought that sniping with stealth is just ridiculous because of how BFH plays anyway. But that's a different topic, I suppose. But yeah, again, kind of a difficult one. I think, and again, I'm going to touch on this later with another problem here. But like, I guess if there were more players, it wouldn't be as much of a big deal. But yeah, like for me personally, whenever I had a server, I would at least try and include a couple of commandos, just to make it a bit more fair. But again, I see both sides. Like I see the frustration if you want to play that class, or if you're, you know, a commando main or whatever. But I also understand, like, if you're the owner of the server, you want it to be, you know, a bit more team play based or just not a game of like trying to find the enemy the whole time because they're all commandos. But yeah. So again, another server related issue here, why people might not be playing. The lack of playable maps. It's no secret that most servers these days run very limited maps, which can get boring quickly for some people. And mostly those servers are mostly dominated by custom maps, and unbalanced maps. Really, there's one in particular that is not from the original. It's kind of rare to see certain maps from the original game, like Fortress Frenzy or Lunar Landing, for example, and a lot of maps seem to be forgotten now, which is a bit of a shame. But again, this is like a thing where it's up to who rents the servers. I know there's at least 2 populated servers right now that run like varied maps, but again, one of them is probably commando dominated, well, mostly, and not everyone likes that. Also, it's another divided topic because some people only like infantry maps and hate vehicle, and vice versa. It depends on the person. Personally, like I prefer infantry more, but I do still enjoy some vehicle maps like Wicked Wake, Buccaneer Bay. That's kind of where I draw the line, but again, it does also depend on what class I'm playing. Um, yeah, but I think more players overall would help. Again, like the commando issue where like if there's a need and a desire for extra servers because of more people playing, maybe that means there's a chance to include more of those maps that aren't seen as much now. I don't know, but again, that's another thing really to try and sort of counter that. But yeah, like I said, those are the most common complaints and the reasons why people don't play that I could see. So, if you guys do have more to add, then I'm happy to do more follow-up videos on this topic because it's kind of interesting to me. And again, like, thanks for the feedback and comments on my last video. I was really pleased with the growth it got compared to my other recent videos, and I hope it continues, because if nothing else, it would be just cool to get more eyes on the game, and that's more or less what I've, always been about. Um, but yeah, I will say this here. I can count the amount of times I've asked this over the years on one hand, but if you guys aren't subscribed, then I would appreciate if you did because, I do post a lot of Battlefield Heroes. I've got a lot of stuff up, if you want to stay up to date with stuff I'm doing. And obviously, I've done quite a few videos on the old game as well as the revival over the years. So yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, so I've got another idea lined up as well and a tutorial on something else, but I am obviously happy to take suggestions for videos as well. And yeah, that was about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.